Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Matthew, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different type of discussion video. See, in front of me, or actually, let's kind of backtrack a little bit. Over the past several years of figure collecting, there's been one thing that has been missing with Godzilla figures. That being a blue beam for Godzilla, which for the longest time the only way to get a blue Godzilla, like we're talking officially licensed 6-inch figures, was only the Monster Arts 1994 Godzilla. And if you actually look back, that was honestly the truth. Like, yeah, there was the 2014 Spitfire Godzilla, but that was a bit too flame-like for some people, so they didn't really bat an eye to that. The Emergence version had like a more puffy, clear beam. It didn't really look all that blue. Although I can't really recall if it was blue. And all the other beam effects that came with, like the Toho effects weapon set, or is it the weapon effects set? You guys know what I'm talking about. That was it was red, and the other beam effect that came with the other building set were just clear plastic, and especially the one that came with Rodan was the red spiral ray, so on and so forth. You get the point. But now things are different. We live in a world where there are so many figure companies that have the Godzilla license more than ever. Mezco, Playmates, to just name them off, Super 7. Companies like them are now getting into the Godzilla game and bringing out what they can do for Godzilla. And as a result, we've had many different beam effects that have came over the years. And I'm going to take a look at 4 different beams from 3 different companies. With that being said, we have one from Mezco, we have 2 from NECA, which I'll talk about why I brought these 2 in particular, and we have 1 from Playmates. So these are all beam effects that are officially licensed, and I know not all collectors can make their own beams for whatever reason, despite the fact that I made one several years ago. And I want to kind of like help you guys choose which one is the best Spitfire Godzilla or Godzilla that comes with a beam effect. I'm going to be listening at the pros and cons of the figure and the beam effect in question, so let's go ahead and start. First up, we've got Contender 1, the Mezco figure, which the beam effect is actually fairly long. It's actually just as long as the other beam effects that we have in the set. Well, not really a set. Yeah, it's almost just as long. It's a smidge shorter, like ever so slightly. But with that being said, here's the Mezco Godzilla, which you're going to want to have the open mouth head open. And you're going to notice this clear little tab, obviously. And you're going to see the throat hole. You're going to want to kind of shove it in there. And there you go. That is Godzilla shooting his beam. Now, what are some of the pros and cons of the beam? Well, for pros, it's a longer beam, which gives it a much more better shelf presence, and it definitely looks the part. It has a nice kind of flare, kind of fiery, almost sculpt look. It definitely looks beam-like. Why is my camera not focusing? However, there is kind of a con to this. And it's going to primarily be about the size of the Godzilla figure. It's only 3-4 inches tall. The average collector will want a figure that's about 6 or 7 inches. So even though he looks the part, don't get me wrong, he's not as tall as his rivals. Something I would also note is the price of the whole set, because he is not officially sold individually. He is $85 because he comes in a set of 4 with Mothra, Rodan, Anguirus, I don't know why I struggle with Anguirus, and of course himself. And they all come with their own individual accessories for different display options. However, you can find this guy on eBay for about, I want to say $30. 40 at the bare most. I know it's like literally half the set's price, but for $30 you're getting like a small figure, very well detailed, and plus the beam effect. I would honestly say that's a pretty good deal. But I definitely do think that this is probably not the best option for collectors, so let's go ahead on to contender 2, which is the NECA Godzilla beams, which over the past several years, NECA has made uh, kind of like a 180 with their Godzillas. Usually their Godzillas were priced at like $20 to $30 per figure, give or take. For example, NECA, you would usually package a beam effect with a Godzilla figure on, I would say, like half of the occasions because some of them didn't really come with any accessories. But for this one, we're looking at the ones that did. And with that, we have two different styles of beam effects. We have this one, which is the originally released as the 1962 Godzilla beam effect. But since then, it was reissued, I want to say, twice after that with the 56 Godzilla and the 54 Godzilla, making this beam effect the most compatible across the NECA Godzilla line with 3 entries total. But do keep in mind when I say 54, I mean the 54 reissue, the one that actually has a hole at the back of its throat that's accommodated for this beam effect. With that being said, you can just simply, how you install it is, you peg this beam effect in, and hold on, you see Godzilla's back throat. I mean, that's plainly obvious. It's like an actual creature. And there you go. Now it's that. Like that. Are there any pros? Well, yeah. For pros, this thing is sculpted and painted beautifully. I love how it just has a smoke look effect to it, like how they did in the original film. And if you pair this beam up with your 54 NECA Godzilla, preferably a reissue, this thing will look straight out of the film. Its size is also fairly nice. And again, it's not really bad at all. But unfortunately, it's also going to have a bit of a cons too, because the color, it's not blue. And it never was blue across the 3 releases. In fact, the only time it ever received a color variant, sorry, I accidentally stopped the recording right there, was with the 56 Godzilla, and as you can see, this is not blue. That is obviously yellow and orange. You have more orange towards the tip. You can kind of see the dry brushing. But yeah, as you can see, this beam effect is definitely like a very detailed piece, but due to the fact that it's not blue, because keep in mind, even in 62, that was the first time it was a blue beam on screen. It never really it's not blue, so that very well might be a detractant to anyone who's buying this. So, honestly, pick your poison for that. And speaking of which, brings us to the next figure, the NECA Godzilla 2019 V2. Why did I put this beam in instead of just leaving it to the NECA, or 62? Well, simple. This one has a bit of a different setup. For one thing, it is definitely, first for installation, you can actually have this thing displayed differently. You're going to notice there's a groove at the top, right about, hold on if I can actually, dear gosh, that glare. Any way to stop that glare? There we go, now I can see it. Yeah, there you go, right where the center of the screen is. You're going to see a little indent for the teeth. There, I mean, it's kind of obvious, so what you're going to want to do is put that on the top row, and then just kind of stick it into Godzilla's mouth. Hold on. It works better sometimes than others. So clamp down his jaw, and damn it, it's kind of a hit or miss. Mostly a miss nowadays, but to be fair, this is an older figure. There we go. Don't knock it down, don't knock it down, don't knock it down. Frick! Really? Damn it. Whatever. But basically, you would have the beam stick into Godzilla's mouth, and you could also bring this piece in. Keep in mind, you do have to rest it in. You could have the beam effect like this and like that. The only thing is that because of like this little impact base, you have to have it resting up against another figure. So as a result, even though this is cool, I think mostly people are going to be buying it for this, not just this. But either way, this is still sick. So, what are the pros and cons? Pros, it's blue, so that automatically gets that right. It's a longer beam than the others, and it's honestly really nice, very high quality, very good detail, very good sculpt, and I like the gimmick with the added blast kind of splash effect, adding for more display options. Cons, the two pieces don't really snap together, and it's a sometimes very loose connection, especially with over time, with things like paint chipping, sculpt rubbage, things like that, with material wearing down over time. And especially with the fact that NECA is no longer making these Godzilla figures, that count for Godzilla figures is always going to be going down unless, well, I mean, you can repair it, so I guess it can go up. So, but yeah, it's also kind of a hit or miss connection, and again, these two don't snap together, so I mean that could be a negative. But realistically, I think that this is probably the best bang for your buck of the bunch. So yeah, that was the NECA beam. Which brings us to our final contender, which is the the Playmates Godzilla, which, if you probably already know what this figure is, but essentially, this is what the beam effect looks like. It is the smallest beam effect, but it is also the most durable, being a much more flexible plastic. It borrows the mold from a flipped up Monstart Spitfire beam, which after doing some side-by-side comparisons, yeah, the flame effects here, and here, and especially here, match up perfectly with the Monstarts. So, essentially how you put this in is, take this little nub that looks like a ball joint, see the roof in Godzilla's mouth, stick it upward, and there you go. Pros, again, durable. It's going to be perfectly fine for your kids, assuming they don't just... Oh wow, that's actually really snug in there. More so than I thought. Yeah, it's perfectly durable. It might actually stay perfectly fine in there after a bit of rough housing with your kids, with the Godzilla and such. It's perfectly cheap as well, for only $10 at Walmart and Target. Perfect. And it's also really well flexible, which means you can... And also, it's translucent. I know the other beams are translucent, but this just screams translucency. Also, there's a bit of a hollow space, so you could actually have it, like, engraved in something. Like, for example, you could have the Kong axe engraved in there. Are there any cons? Well, you do get things like, well, the ball beam effect, and it does droop over time, but overall, I think it's probably the winner. Or a winner, at least. Overall, I really don't have much to say, aside from the winner is actually up to you. You guys get to decide. But yeah, with that being said, I don't have much else to say, so thank you guys for watching this video. If you guys liked it, definitely subscribe to the channel. Jesus loves you, God bless you all, go out there and spread the gospel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, everyone.